What should be in the creative industries in Czech Republic? Well, first of all, I think you should include what you feel is important for Czech Republic. If you try to see what's happening in Europe, then you will find a definition jungle. Okay? Every country has slightly different approach. There are similarities. Almost every country talks about design and architecture and performing arts and heritage and music and other sectors like this. But there are areas that some countries include and some countries leave out. My message is that you should be flexible. Whatever helps you or your city or your country should be included. What is a good experience in my view is that you need to understand what are the core industries, what are the core sectors where creativity really comes from and which helps them to flourish. And then you need to look at what are the dependent industries. Let me bring an example. What about engineering? Well, this is absolutely an important part if you think about architecture. But is engineering itself a creative industry? Well, in some countries yes, in some countries no. What about printing? Printing is part of publishing, but printing itself might not be a creative activity. So we would call these kind of areas dependent industries, dependent sectors. But actually, where things are really getting interesting is the crossovers or the spillovers of culture to other sectors. Culture contributes to tourism, everybody knows that. Culture design plays an important role in manufacturing to help to raise value to your products and services. But also in many other fields. Cultural managers, artists and game developers work together with medical engineers to come up with better medical tools. Artists work with hospitals to improve the rehabilitation environments and methodologies. So things like that are, I think, where the real creativity comes and flourishes. And if you try to be very narrow and very strict in your definition, there's a risk that you unknowingly and unwillingly kind of exclude these fantastic spillovers and bridges to other sectors. Well, the bad news is that when you are developing creative industries, you cannot copy-paste from anywhere else. Okay? You have to create your own model. You have to look in your country, or in your region or your city, what is there. What's your strengths and what your weaknesses. Where are you what's in your neighborhood. That's the bad news. You have to do it all over again. The good news is there's lots of sources of inspiration. There are so many places that have done fantastic jobs, so you can learn from them. What we have learned in European Union from different experience from 28 member states is that even though every time, every country, every place is a different case, there are certain steps that are in common. If you look at what has happened in Europe, you see that in all the successful cases, you have certain preconditions in place. What those preconditions might be? Well, usually it means about mapping. You need to know what is there. You need to know who are you talking to. You need to start building certain knowledge base. You need not only mapping, not numbers, but somehow to explain the numbers, what's behind the numbers. If you know the numbers and mapping, you need to build alliances. You need to build networks. You need to bring the people in, and you need to grow and raise the awareness. Okay? And then you need good politicians and policymakers who understands that this is important and put in place good strategies and policies. That would be the first level. This is when we can start talking about developing creative industries. The second step, the second layer, is to look at what does the sector, what does the culture and creative industries need to be more successful. Well, that's actually the very first question you should ask from the creative professionals in your area. What do you need to be successful? Is it a house, a room, internet access? Is it advice? Is it training? Is it education? Is it money? Is it context? What is it? We've seen all these elements that I just mentioned present in good places, whether it is physical infrastructure, whether it is incubators, which are blooming everywhere in Europe, capacity building, education, training programs, mentor programs, coaching, access to finance, very important, how to let the creative businesses to get access to capital, but also networking, clustering, and access to foreign markets. So lots of things, and you should look at this as a holistic approach, not one bit and piece and then you have a miracle. There's no miracle. You need to look at the entire picture. And when this is done, when you have a strong sector, when you have companies that can get support and can have a good environment to grow, you look at the third layer. And this is where things are getting really interesting. This is the spillover effects, as I mentioned. This is how culture contributes to education, to well-being, social well-being, integration, social cohesion, to innovation and tourism and sustainable development and so many other areas. So this is pretty much the framework that most of the successful cases have gone through and can be done here in Czech Republic as well.